Out of mind, you found someone new, but I can't change my love the way that you do.
This is the story of a lost neighborhood and of its people who did not want to go.
I don't want no money. I want my home. The old man is old. See how the old man is old? No more. That's enough. I don't want to get out. I said to my two daughters, they don't want to get out too, because they spend a lot of money. Plenty of money they spend in this place. We not get none to nobody. Never.
Hi, welcome to the West End Video Newsletter. Tonight we have Sonny Lopresti, longtime West Ender and longtime friend. I guess we were hanging on the corner in Brighton Street for many, many years ago. It's been at least 40 years that I can think of that I've known you. And Sonny's here tonight, not only as a friend, but as a candidate. Sonny is running again. He was a former governor's council in this district, and he is running again as in this year for the seat. And I want to introduce Sonny. He's a longtime West Ender, good friend, and one thing I've always, if I ever called him with a problem, he either said right out front that he could do it or he couldn't do it. He wasn't one of these politicians that would lie to you blatantly. It was probably his biggest asset. And so before we go into that, though, I would like to say one thing. I would like to give my buddy Dean Wallace from the Editorial Humor. I wrote a piece in my newsletter about my brother. My brother died 3 months ago, and in it I wrote about my brother Paul. Dean Wallace liked the piece so much that he reprinted it in the Editorial Humor. By the time this gets pushed out all around the city, it'll probably be too late for you to buy it, but if you ever see the Editorial Humor, Dean Wallace puts out a good publication, and the editorial comics are really funny too. I mean, so it's worth the 50 cents that you'll have to pay to get it. So I just wanted to give Dean a little plug. He's a great guy, and he's good to talk to anyway. He's a hot ticket. You can sit and talk to him for an hour. So if you ever get a chance, you go buy an Editorial Humor machine, throw 50 cents in and get him. Give Dean a little business. And now back to Sonny Lopresti.
Well, that's a good plug, and I enjoyed that article myself. I called you on that.
That's right.
That was a very touching article. Your brother was a good guy. And
yeah, he was a good friend too. Like I say, I thought I wrote the article and I thought it was disjointed, and I thought Richie was going to put it in the back of the newsletter somewhere and bury it. And he put it on the front page, and next thing I know, I got everybody calling me. You called me.
I thought you had
Al Lupo called me.
I thought you had a ghostwriter. Taking nothing away from you was very well done.
Yeah.
It was
Al Lupo
well
called me. He
done,
says,
yeah.
Jim, I want to tell you, that was
a touching
yeah.
story,
He said it was a great article.
It's a good, you call it a good human interest story.
Yeah.
You know, you see them once in a while.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame that it had to be about that, but be that as it may, let's go on. You know what I want to talk about? A little bit about the old days. You know, your family is a long-time political family out of the West End.
Right.
Your father was a state senator.
Right, way
And,
back.
you know, we have to go back to 1952. Your father could have been Tip O'Neill. He lost by 92 votes in the election. And it was a real close race. And, you know, I don't know if your father would have turned out as Speaker of the House or anything, but he lost that election by a very, very close margin. And he was a state senator for a lot of years. And I know we helped out, because I know in 58, you remember Jimmy Capalupo?
Right, very well.
Jimmy Capalupo drove the car, and I did the sound. You know, we used to put the music on, and you used to run the sound cars.
Sound cars.
Right, and vote for Mike Lopresti on September.
Those were different days. You know, when I think of some of the things, that sound cars, I don't think anyone uses them anymore. At least I haven't seen one in a few years. If they are, they're remote.
I think they're illegal.
Also, well, I don't know. Maybe.
I think they're illegal now.
Maybe the noise. That's a possibility. Also, I recall when we were younger, on elections, there were a lot of street corner rallies. There were a lot of organizations. There were clubs.
Right.
In Boston, especially, you must have had 20 clubs in the West End and maybe 40 in the North End. And
Right.
there would be rallies. Sometime a night like tonight, you'd be going from one to the other to the other.
Most prominent of them was the Hendricks Club,
Well,
Lemazni's.
that was
Yeah.
the most powerful of all the clubs in that part of Boston. And also, another thing of the past was the torchlight parades.
Yep. Yep.
It was colorful, you know what I mean? People were more interested. Remember, you're talking a day before the great advancement of TV. Today, so many people are just home watching TV every night. They just don't go to these things.
You remember, you did an oral history taping with us, right? You one of those videotapings. Well, one of the old-timers was telling us about, way back when they used to have the political rallies around 1910, 1920. He says, yeah. He says, and the other guys would come over, and he says, they'd start yelling at the politician in the middle of it, and our guys would start fighting with theirs, and there'd be this big brawl out in front of in front of the stand. Some of those tapes we have are very interesting.
Well, I remember an incident like that years ago down on Commercial Street in the North End. There was a club, and my father at the time was in one of his close battles with former Senator Umana.
Oh, right, I remember that.
And there were a lot of people there, mostly, well, like today, I'd say the older people vote more than the young people. And the club was loaded with a lot of old-timers that evening, a lot of women. And to spite him, the owner of the building was with his opponent, so he shut off the electricity in the middle of a speech. The entire club went dark. And it worked against Umana's people because these people were, these were parents and grandparents of some of the people down there. What right do you have to shut the lights on? It scared the heck out of some of them, and it was, but that's the kind of thing they did, ripping down signs, putting up signs.
Right, that's the political.
A little hot and heavy.
Like I say, you're an old political family out of the West End. You've been in politics for a long time, right up through your brother, who was a state senator, all the way down the line, and now you're running again. And like I say, you've always been what I call the quintessential politician, because you've always been. If you make a phone call to you, you didn't bull anybody. You told them how the ground laid and everything. You didn't try to get everybody as a voter, by lying to them. So
well,
you've always been good that way.
Answering my calls.
That's right. And you always would make the call. You said, I'll make the call. It doesn't mean it's going to work, but I'll make the call.
If I can do it, I'll do it. If I can't, I can't. But I'm not going to leave you hanging, telling you, Jim, just be patient when I know I can't do it. You know what I mean? Exactly. I don't like that done to me, and it's been done, and I don't think anyone else should. But the one thing I try to always remind people, anyone involved with politics, don't make enemies because of a political campaign. Because the candidates all make up, and a lot of them shake hands and are friends for life.
Right. Oh, that's
and
true,
you know what I mean? Some of the supporters get hot and heavy.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
I know neighbors pitted against neighbors over the years. It's terrible. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. You do your best. You offer your candidacy, and you get out there, and if you make it, you make it. If you don't, you just shake hands and make up,
You have a record, okay, like here in Somerville, you were an alderman for how many years?
6 years.
6 years. And then you became a governor's council. You went to governor's council. You stepped up to the governor's council. You were there, what, 4 years or something?
I was there 2 years.
2 years, yeah. And you did some things here in Somerville. I don't know if people remember it, but you were a very progressive alderman, if I remember right. Like with drug programs. There were other things. I don't remember if you were the one that helped get the meetings on TV or not, but there was, I remember there were things you were doing that a lot of the other aldermen at that time were resisting.
I helped open the finance board meetings for the first time in the history of the city. And it's a funny thing because not too many people attended anyway. But just the fact of the matter that people thought they were closed, which they were for years. They thought some hanky-panky may be going on. But when we opened them to the public, you'd be lucky if you had a half dozen people show up. But I believe in open government. I mean, when I first went to the Governor's Council, my first meeting, I demanded the doors be open, and I said, and I meant it, as far as I'm concerned, you can take the hinges off the door, because I will not attend a closed-door meeting. No reason for it. And the Boston Globe gave me a nice write-up on that particular stance. And then we went a little further in that area and took the meetings on the road. We had meetings in Springfield, Worcester, Fall River, allowing people who couldn't get into Boston the opportunity to attend the meetings. And quite often we had school groups come up, civic classes, and things of that nature. It opened the process a bit. I thought it was, it's a program I'd like to reinitiate.
Are they closed meetings again now?
To my knowledge, they're not closed meetings. I haven't been to the meetings, but they always had a stipulation where if a meeting was going to deal with personalities, they can go into a closed meeting.
session,
Whether they've done it or not, I don't know. I haven't attended a meeting. I attended one meeting there maybe 3 years ago, and that was open. So, but we didn't even have closed sessions for that.
Were the duties the same as when you were a governor's council as they
They're
are
the
now?
same
Because I
as-
know they took away some of the stuff.
They took away a lot, but that was before I was on.
Okay.
They still do, they vote for pardons, paroles, commutations, extra work orders, which is an issue people don't realize. They're the last Board of Appeals for veterans benefits. It's another area people
I didn't even
don't-
realize that.
A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of veterans don't realize that. If they lose, on a hearing on their local border with the state, they can go to the board, to the governor's council, and they can overrule them. And as you do know, they vote for members of the judiciary,
Well, I
which is
think-
probably their most important function. But I think they can go a step further than that. I think it can be used as a sounding board. I think it can be used as a platform to advocate programs for our district.
A bully pulpit.
Let's assume, for one thing, remember, the governor's council serves weekly with the lieutenant governor, who often has a lot of influence. And
Right.
sometimes they have good access to the governor's office. And you also are working with state legislators. You're in the State House. You're dealing with senators and representatives. And why couldn't you use this as a platform to help push, let's say, a local senator or representative has legislation, to speak to the lieutenant governor, to
That
try
makes
to help
sense,
him, get us a few votes on this issue. Because some districts don't have as much representation as others. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I live now in the town of Stoneham. There is not one elected official in the State House that lives in Stoneham.
Is that right?
Right. Now, you might wonder sometimes, why is the Stone Zoo practically devoid of animals?
It's devoid of politicians.
Really, yeah, that's exactly. Now, if that zoo were in South Boston,
Oh,
there'd
without a
probably be, a great array of animals over there, because they have had
More
political
than just
strength.
the animals.
Right, you have to be realistic. They have political strength, and,
Yeah.
and it helps
Of
out.
course, yeah. And that's
You
true.
know?
That's true of like some of the in-town districts like Ward 1 and North End, West End.
Yeah, a lot
Ward
of them.
1
A
and
lot
Ward
of them
3.
don't have
Yeah.
too many strong
Yeah.
representatives up there.
Yeah. It's, politics is changing anyway, like we were talking before.
It's changing a lot. A lot of people don't want to get involved. Although in my fight, ironically, there's something like 10 candidates.
I heard
For
12
governor's
was the
council.
last I heard.
Well, there may be now. I thought it was 11 and one dropped out.
Well, I'll tell you why. I
But
talked to
don't know.
somebody, and I said, gee, there's 11 candidates running for that seat. And they said 12. I said, well, I thought one dropped out. They said, but a Socialist Party candidate came in.
Oh, really? I
Yeah,
wasn't
so
aware of that.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's true or not. That's what I was
I
told
wasn't aware
by
of that.
someone who was, just walking
Yeah,
by,
I
and so I was
wasn't aware
talking
of
to. So he said this.
Quite surprising, isn't it?
I mean, gee, there's so many people running for a seat. Yeah, it's not just there. It's the eighth congressional
Well,
district.
yeah. Well, a Congress seat's a big seat. It's an important seat.
Yeah.
It pays well, and it's like I always looked at Congress. They're like out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
To defeat an incumbent congressman is almost impossible. It's
Yeah, no.
in my recollection, it's never happened, with the exception of a scandal or redistricting.
Or sometimes if a Republican gets elected in a Democratic ward,
But
because
they-
Torkelson got knocked out, and
Redistricting.
Oh, did it?
Wasn't that a redistricting?
it may have been.
I believe
yeah.
it was. I thought it
That's
was
right. It was in that time.
Yeah,
that era,
because
yeah.
that's happened in this state. They had
Yeah.
redistricting and they've knocked people out.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they have a large staff. They have franking
Mhm.
privileges. It's just,
Oh yeah.
and they're in Washington. They're out of sight, out of mind.
Well, that's the one
true.
thing I've always said. Like Joe Kennedy wanted to run for governor. I couldn't understand why he wanted to be a governor, because usually senators and congressmen, they don't make many enemies. They usually don't make enemies. But if you're in an administrative position, especially a mayor probably makes the most amount of
Well,
enemies of everybody.
the buck stops there.
Yeah.
Let's say a congressman, U.S. senator, they can always blame it on the president, on the administration, so to speak. The mayor, the same thing. The buck stops there, and the governor, the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're tough positions. It's very difficult
Yeah.
for someone like a mayor or a governor to serve more than 2 or 3 terms.
Sure, because if you go this way, if you sign the bill this way, all the people that were against it don't
Yeah,
like you.
yeah.
And if you veto it, all the people that were for it, are against you. So it's sort of a no-win situation, unless it's like now where the economy is going so good that nobody wants to change anything. Everybody's happy and they go, yeah, so what?
Well,
so
I
what?"
think I would say that's a great deal of
Yeah.
Clinton's luck, is it that the economy is good, people
Yeah.
are working, also that we're at peace
Yeah?
We're at peace, so...
Well, virtually
I
at
mean,
peace. I
if-
guess there's a little bit going on over in
Well, yeah,
Bosnia.
I mean virtual peace. It's
Yeah.
not like Lyndon Johnson when we were in
Yes,
Vietnam. I mean,
200,000 troops. Yeah.
he really took it on the chin. He didn't put us in there, you know
Well,
that,
he-
but he kept us in there, maybe.
There was 6,000 troops under Kennedy when he got in.
Yeah,
It was-
but
after he was in
Johnson,
200,000.
Johnson
so,
took, yeah,
you know, it expanded
that
quite a bit.
ruined him.
Yeah.
But I mean, right now, I think the economy is great too, and
Yeah.
Clinton's looking good up there.
Yeah, Clinton looks very good at this point. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, today they ruled that Hubble, you know, they couldn't charge him for tax evasion. They threw out the charges on him.
Oh, really? That's
So
interesting.
he's looking even better than ever. But other than that,
Well, let's get back to Somerville. Let's, rather the 6th district, I
That's
say
right.
Somerville. It takes them more than Somerville. There's Medford and
right.
Arlington, Malden, Melrose,
Right.
parts of Boston, Allston, Cambridge, all of Cambridge, almost all of Cambridge, I should say.
Do
It's
you
a
have any
large-
new ideas for this district, or?
Right now, I think, yes, one thing I think we would like to do to get more input on the council is probably to get on the internet.
Yeah, it's
I
not a
think
bad
I think there'll be an idea. A lot of people on computers these days, and this way they can let the council. Let's say a controversial issue is coming before the council.
Mhm.
Let them know it. Let them know what their feelings are on this.
Yeah.
It would, you know, it would be an easy thing to do because so many
Sure.
people on it.
I mean,
That's one of the ideas I have.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, I think taking the council outside the perimeter of the State House again would be a good idea. Let people
well, you've
attend.
always had creative ideas.
Yeah.
All through your career, Alderman, Governor's Council, you've always had very creative ideas. So I'm sure if you got back there, you'd be doing it. You know, doing the same thing again. You'd be looking at the situation and coming up new and innovative ideas. I mean, you've done that before. I hate to repeat it and everything, but you know, I've known you for so long, and you know, I've watched your work.
Well, it keeps it interesting.
Gee, I get bored with this.
Well, you know, when I first took the council meetings on the road,
Yeah.
gee whiz, I met a lot of reluctance up there. Oh,
Yeah.
God, you're teaching old dogs new tricks. And,
Yeah.
wow, for crying out loud, we have to take our records. You know, we weren't moving a circus.
Yeah.
A few boxes of folders, and
Pack up the
there we
tent.
go. Yeah, it wasn't that big a deal. And it really worked out good. We even had a meeting over here. We had a judge, a judicial appointment in Medford coming up. And a lot of people who didn't want to get into Boston or couldn't park, worried about different things, they attended that meeting because of the local boy becoming a judge. And he was a very well-liked guy at the time, Judge Irwin.
Yeah.
And that meeting had probably a couple hundred people attending it right at Medford City Hall.
Why don't we put up your sign, Sonny? I think we have. Don't we have your?
We had it right down by your...
Oh, right by my feet. Here we go. Just to give him a little bit of a plug. Never mind a little bit. We'll give him a big plug. Remember, this is a West End show about West Enders, and this guy is a dyed-in-the-wool West Ender. If anybody other than me is a West Ender, Sonny Lopresti has always been
Yeah, we've gone back.
wearing
a
West
long-
End on
we've
his sleeve.
gone
Yeah.
back. We've moved, actually. I remember
Yeah.
you and I moving from corner to corner. As
That's
they were
right.
knocking us down, we'd go up Chambers Street
That's
to
right.
Spring, then later
That's
on
right.
up to Poplar. It was unbelievable.
That's
we
right.
were 2 steps ahead of the wrecking ball.
There's
in
an
those
interesting
days, right?
story once about you
Wasn't
bet
it?
somebody $50 to run around the block in his
There are a million crazy stories in the West End.
Yeah, that was
You were a part of some of them.
long time. and-
There were a lot of stories. It's a funny thing. I had visited this dentist in Stoneham one
Yeah.
time, and I don't know how the subject of the West End came up, but it did. And he said, "Oh my God," he said, "I had a patient of mine. I couldn't wait till he came in. The stories that he told me, the things.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of fun. It was
Yeah.
a lot of fun. You know, we had to create a lot of our own fun, but we did.
Different era because you didn't have Pac-Man, you didn't have you know, cable, you didn't have computers, you didn't have any of this stuff.
No.
All you had was your own, you know, you go out in the
You-
street,
you'd
meet 30
come-
kids,
right.
and what are we going to do
You'd
tonight?
innovate.
Yeah.
You'd innovate.
Yeah.
You would. You'd buck up. You'd
Yeah.
have games. You'd
Yeah.
make
Punch
teams.
ball.
Yeah, every day. Another thing that, you know, I wonder sometimes, I say, well, these kids don't do that today. Would it be possible to do it today? A lot of our activities are in the street.
Mhm.
We'd stay up there playing games like Relivio, like Red Rover,
Yeah.
like Punch Ball. What
Yeah.
street could you, unless it's a dead end today, there's an automobile every 2 minutes. You were talking a neighborhood that didn't have that many automobiles.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to put it in the playground, I think, nowadays. Because
Something
number
like
one,
that,
the cops,
yeah.
I don't think the cops will let you out in the street. I don't think a lot of this stuff could happen. You're right. It was a different era. For all practical purposes, with dinosaurs. Oh, by the way, tell that story.
Oh, yeah.
Now that I used the term, I forgot all about it. Just dawned on
I
me.
met my old friend George Backrack, who's running for office again, and I haven't seen George in, I'd say, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And he said, and we had run before, you know, for different
Right.
offices. And I was on the governor's council. I forget what he was running for. I believe
He
the
ran for
Senate or
Congress.
something like that.
Congress,
Yeah, it was
Congress.
well, that was before.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, he said, "Gee, Vinny, isn't this ironical? We're both running the same time. It's been a long time, like a couple of dinosaurs." I said, "Hey, good time for us to do that." They brought back Godzilla. So, but he, you know, he was friendly about it. We just kidded, and along the way, you meet a lot of people.
That's
you know,
right.
you have a hard congressional fight.
And the good ones survive, and
district,
the other
yeah,
ones fall by the wayside, because eventually you wear out your welcome with the voters. If you
Well, you know, Jimmy, my philosophy, and I really mean this, before you can be a good public official, you have to be a good person, and you have to be a good citizen.
it's true.
And it irks me to no end when I see some people who do nothing for their community, don't participate in anything, and they're completely invisible, and then they'll come up and want to run for public office. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, in this community here, when I left public office, I became very active with the Somerville Boys Club.
That's right.
Right here in
used to do
Warner's,
the telethon.
right
That's
here
right.
in Warner TV, we had
That's
telethons every year, and we
Right.
raised something in the vicinity of maybe $12,000 to $15,000 in each telethon.
I remember because a couple of times I
Yeah.
called you up, I think.
Yeah, Warner Cable was super good to it,
Yeah.
to Somerville Boys Club, because they had us on all day long
That's right.
at no charge. And boy, I'll tell you, I think to this day there are still some people contributing to the Boys Club.
Boys Club, because
But I became involved in that because I still like it. It was still my
Yeah, it was
community,
fun.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, and it was for a good cause. And over the years, I mean, how long are the West End House down? I'm still, with
That's right.
yourself, active with the West End House Boys
That's
Club.
right. We're still West
Still
End Boys
raising
Club, that's
funds
right.
for the West End House because we know what it did for us as youth.
Well, we had that. We had this. They were on what 2 months ago.
Oh, did you have on the show?
Yeah, we had them on in May, I believe.
They've done a great job for the kids. For the kids.
Oh, sure, without a doubt. Well, you know,
West End
Alston
Road.
has become, like when we were kids, Alston was like a suburban community,
Right.
okay? Alston has become more like the West End. It has more immigrants, it has Asian kids, black kids, it has a whole host of different nationalities and everything. And the West End House over there is serving the same needs that they served in the West End. They have
Right.
basketball courts. They have a beautiful swimming pool now. We never had
Oh,
that.
I know it.
We had the Charles River, but that was
Scully's.
after a while you could walk on it.
Scully is a child.
That's right.
BB, yeah, those were
But the West End
interesting.
House today is doing a lot of the same things it did in the West End.
They send kids to camp,
Well,
comp.
still
A
do,
lot of
yeah,
kids who cannot afford to go to summer camp get away. And for a city kid, that's a big deal. That's
Give
still a
money
big
for
deal.
scholarships.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
kids go to college.
When we were kids, there were some West End boys that got scholarships in the West End House.
You know who
even then.
who that happened to? And a lot of people will recognize the name was Leonard Nimoy. The
Oh,
West End
really?
House helped them get money to go to BC.
Is that right? I
Yeah,
didn't
he
realize
sent that into the newsletter. That's why I know it.
Yeah, I know over the
Yeah,
years that
yeah.
they've given a lot of money to kids to go to college.
Yeah.
And,
They were a good nonprofit. There were a couple in the West End. The two biggest probably, Peabody House and
well, there's Peabody House. They're still here in Somerville, too, and they're still doing a good job.
yeah, but they handled both boys and girls.
Right. Well, the
Yeah.
West End House does now, too.
Yeah, now they
It's a
do.
West
But
End
at that
House Boys
time
and
there was
Girls-
like
so
sort
is
of
the
a
Somerville Boys and Girls
they
Club,
were
yeah.
like two different, stratified.
You know, there was a little, believe it or not, now I reflect upon it, there was a little animosity about that with the girls, and I can't blame them. I know back a few years ago, we were trying to get some people involved with the West End House, boys and men and women who were kids in the West End many years ago. And the girls were kind of reluctant because they said when we were kids, we'd go to the West End House and
That's
we'd
right.
have to look on and wait for the boys to come out at 9 o'clock or whenever they finished. They said, with the exception of dances, we weren't allowed in the club.
That's right.
But it was a different era. You could never discriminate like that today.
No, you can't do those a whole host of things you can't do nowadays.
No. Well, I mean, it's a funny thing to think that was just taken for granted. Yet the Peabody House was always boys and girls. That for as
Yeah, you
far
had
back as I remember.
So many nights, and not only that, they had a lot of immigrant programs. People don't realize the Elizabeth Peabody House were in the
great
West
theater
End.
program.
Yeah, well, theater program,
great
they
theater
had
program.
Milk for Working Mothers and the Return of the Century. Most people don't realize that it was started by old-line Yankees, who Elizabeth Peabody was one, but there were people on the board, early board of directors like the Emersons. I mean, you look at
Oh,
their,
really?
their board of
Yeah.
directors. It was like a literary showcase. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah, well,
the
both
first
organizations-
playground. They had a million things.
Yeah,
And they used to have
playground,
they had weddings in the gym. You know, you know why the gym was so small?
Can
Because
I
they
tell
originally,
you-
when
can
the
I-
place was built, it was built for
Can I
gymnastics.
tell you one of the weddings in the gym?
No.
My mother and father.
Oh.
My
See
mother
that?
and father.
See
yeah.
how easy that was.
That's what, okay. Isn't that funny that you mentioned that? Yeah, that's where they were married.
Yeah,
Peabody
yeah.
House Gym. Yeah.
Potluck
That's
dinners.
it. When
for
I was told that,
politicians,
I couldn't get over it. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, that's. But they
Well, yeah.
service the community well.
Well, before we end, I want to put out one. You know, everybody from the West End that knows you, right, will probably vote for you anyway. Okay.
Oh, we hope so.
Oh, well, except for them few guys.
Hopefully.
But I just want to hope that everybody that doesn't know him, who's from the West End, sees this, and will give Vinny a vote. He deserves it. He's always been a good politician. He didn't get voted out of the Governor's Council. He left the Governor's Council, so it wasn't that he got thrown out of it. I mean, there was, and he's a good man. He's trying for the seat again, and I think he deserves it. I think he has. There's no one in there now. He's not going against an incumbent. He's probably the best politician I know. Okay, not a politician now, but you know, for the time. And I urge everybody out there, even non-West Enders, because you know, you'd be surprised. This is not just a show that's watched by West Enders. Sonny, if I was not a West Ender, is probably a guy I could, you know, back anyway. You know, I could endorse you no matter what, because I think you're that. I think you're more than just a friend. I think you're a good politician, which is strange. You know, I don't know many good politicians.
I don't either.
But
there are some. There are some
yeah,
out there. Really.
but I want to say that because you know, it's not just that I know you. Is why I'm saying this. Okay? I really think there. And I've told you that before.
Yeah, we go back. Well, we
yeah,
go
I've
back
told
as
you that
we've
before.
been friends.
I think you're one of the better politicians. We're one of the better politicians, and I hated to see you leave office. But other than that, I hope everybody out there would come and you know, vote for you, especially even non-West Enders, anybody in the areas that he's affected. What is the district? The 6th, is it?
It's the 6th council district.
Sixth
It takes
council
in
district.
5 senatorial districts. It takes in Somerville, Cambridge, Medford, Arlington. It goes north as far as Reading, and then it goes northwest as far as Billerica, Burlington, and in this area it goes into Boston, Allston, Brighton, a little part of Beacon Hill, East Boston, Winthrop, and north in that direction as far as Revere and a part of Saugus. It's a large. It's 19 parts of. And consists of, actually touches 19 cities and towns. So it's
So,
hard.
I urge you all to vote for this man. And you want anything else you want to say? We're coming to the end, so if you have anything you want to say.
No, I
Speak now
just want
for-
to thank you very much for having me in your program. I've been here before with you. and
You've been
it's
here more.
always,
Matter of fact, you did the very first show that we ever did. The very
yeah,
first
you
show.
had told me. I didn't
Yeah,
realize that.
you had
until
come
you
on,
reminded me of that.
we had you on, and the next show was Al Lupo. Al Lupo was the second show. Now we've done 105.
Wow.
So
Well,
it's
the
been a long time.
amazing thing is, I channel surf myself, so I watch all channels, and I've seen your show many, many times. But I was surprised at the amount of people who I'll bump into and say, gee, I saw you on Jimmy Campano's show on the West End Pro. You know, I never realized how many people watch. A lot of people do watch. I mean, and just the other night I was talking to another politician at a time, and they said, gee, we love to get on cable because we meet more people that see us on there. You know, it's a great way of advertising.
Well, we've reached the end of our time, and I got to wrap this up. So see you at the next West End video newsletter. Sorry, Joe, I ran a little over, but that's it.